Dear Rockstar, you are going to be glad you came in, especially if you have any passion around sustainability, fleet farming, and changing the world. We are lucky to have Chris Castro with us. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I would tell you all the ventures and explain the ventures that you're at, but we were just going over them. Let's see.
Ideas for us.
Ideas for us.
Fleet farming, citizen energy, Florida Green Chamber of Commerce, and now I'm the sustainability director for the city of Orlando. Over the last 10 years, I've really found a passion in sustainability and how we could engage people in solving problems through social entrepreneurship and through innovation and creativity. I've had the pleasure of helping to start nonprofits and for-profit companies, and a couple of them include Ideas for Us, Fleet Farming, Citizen Energy, Florida Green Chamber of Commerce, and now I'm the sustainability director for the city of Orlando.
Yeah, it's just like the rest of the world, we all just feel like we've just been sitting around doing nothing.
Not true.
Okay, so take us back,
Sure.
like where this all started.
Yeah, I grew up in Miami, Florida. I'm a second generation Cuban American, and was fortunate to have my grandparents come from Cuba and establish themselves. And when I was growing up, I really didn't have too much. My parents ended up getting enough money to get a farm in Homestead, Florida.
Okay.
And I ended up being a part of a family palm tree farm where we were growing varieties of exotic palms and really getting some experience in reconnecting with the natural world. And back when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily really like that. It was sometimes
it was
my
a
punishment.
farm.
Right, it was my punishment. You know, you're going to the weekend, you're going to the farm, and I was like, no, you got to be kidding me. But over time, I started to really gain an appreciation for what we were doing, and I think that really, when I look back at where I am now, was the foundation for where I am today. I ended up going through great education. My mom was, very solid on education. She grew up as a single mother and wanted the best for me, and so she put me through an international baccalaureate program from when I was in third grade all the way to when I was in senior year. So I went to IB in elementary, IB in middle, IB in high school, and so I had this.
And that whole time, were you on the farm too?
Mm-hmm, I was part. Yeah, we were part of the, on the farm, helping to grow different, plants and palms. In fact, when I was in high school, I received a grant from the USDA, or my dad did, to. It was kind of like this college. Grant where I would grow 5,000 of a certain variety. I grew Washingtonia palms, and over the course of a 4-year period, I tended to these palms, I grew them, they were my crop, and then I got to sell them as college stipend. So when I got to UCF, where I ended up going, I actually had a little bit of some money to hold me over and pay rent and get me by.
So you're just really nursed and immersed in nature and education early on.
Yeah, very much so. Coming to UCF, I was actually undeclared. And a lot of people don't, they would think that I was, being where I am, you must have been in the environmental field your whole life. And I kind of quasi was, right, on the farm, and appreciation, with surfing and diving and things like that. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. And I was kind of lost going to UCF, and said, I'm just going to go up there and kind of figure it out as I go. And so I was completely undeclared for the first year and a half, not really knowing where I was going to go. And eventually I went to a press conference that President John Hitt was speaking at the University of Central Florida. And he had signed this document that supposedly was a very important document. It was called the American College and Universities President's Climate Commitment, ACUPUC for short. Now we have over 800 universities across the country who have signed this document, basically committing to making their universities carbon neutral by a certain year, right? Completely sustainable campuses. The energy that we get coming from renewable energy, 100%. The waste that we generate completely diverted from the landfill. The water that we use reclaimed and repurposed. The food that we're getting localized, right? All of these facets that make a carbon neutral campus.
Right.
And our goal was to be carbon neutral by 2050, and it still is. And
so you're sitting in that.
So I'm sitting at this press conference, undeclared student, and we're right around the downturn of this recession that we had, right around 2007, 2008. And in fact, it was 2007. And I end up saying, there's something about this movement that's starting that I think I need to get involved in. And when I look back to where I was, that foundation of being on the farm and enjoying my appreciation for surfing, I said, this might be my calling. And so I applied to be part of President HIT's Student Sustainability Alliance. And it was a group of 10 students who were selected to develop the plan of how we ended up going carbon neutral.
You would be taking what? The second biggest university in the nation.
Country.
Their carbon neutral plan.
And building the vision of what this is. And so I was on the first committee, the first alliance of building out this plan, got to put together all of the goals, the strategies, the tactics of what we wanted to become. But I saw that there was a disconnect once we built this plan.
Yeah.
And that was that we weren't engaging the students, the creativity, the human ingenuity on our campus
Okay, it was
in
kind
solving
of a
that
top,
problem.
like,
Very much
administrator solution.
correct. This is what we're going to do from an operations level, but you have 60,000 students at this university and the potential for all disciplines and all ages to come together and help us reach this very important goal.
Right.
And so that's when myself and a group of students came together and we created Ideas for UCF, an acronym that stands for Intellectual Decisions on Environmental Awareness Solutions.
Okay.
And Ideas...
So that was the problem, that Ideas was the solution to that.
Correct.
The first Ideas.
Correct. Ideas at UCF.
Right.
And so we started to bring together students from legal studies, from marketing, from communications, of course environmental studies, from engineering, from business, and all of us came together and started to develop projects, initiatives, campaigns, different projects that we essentially could implement on our campus to help us reach this goal of carbon neutrality. We started the recycling program throughout the tailgates and on our dorm room campus. We started the energy challenge within dorms called Kilowatt to encourage students to save energy. We ended up finding a grant and we won $750,000 to install solar outside of the Rec and Wellness Center. And so all of this was driven by students. All of this was students who were trying to leverage their own knowledge and the experiences and the education that they were getting in each one of their own respective fields and bring it together to solve these problems and create these solutions. And I end up really getting involved in clean energy, of course.
Yeah, you got kind of deep there. Well, and Ideas ends up now, that was how many years ago?
That was 8 years ago today.
And now Ideas is what?
We're in 24 different countries. We have over 200 different registered chapters, and we're doing sustainability projects in energy, water, food, waste, and ecology all around the world.
Just it's mind-boggling. So what do you say to that person that wants to make an international impact? What have you learned about scaling something like that?
I think it's important for us. When I started Ideas at UCF, I didn't have the vision of where this has gone. Right? I ended up getting an internship in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Department of Energy, met another ambitious student from Penn State University, and he was very interested in what we were doing at UCF with Ideas. And he says, what would it take for me to start Ideas at my campus? And that's when I saw the potential for what this could become. And we started to develop a toolkit, a replicable guide on how I can scale. What's the constitution? What is my logo? How do I structure myself? What are project ideas? And little by little, we started to replicate to different universities, UF, FIU, USF, UCLA, Michigan University, and it started to become this grassroots movement. As I'm a student still at UCF, full-time student, this thing is starting to take off organically. And I think when I look back to how we've gotten here, it's really been being able to think big about what you could be, start small at an individual campus or a community and a project, and then find ways to scale fast and replicate that model.
And scaling fast, what was the model that helped you do that?
Social media. I really think we're in a day and age that social media is one of the most powerful tools. It completely removes and eliminates borders from our countries. I chat with students and people in Uganda and Liberia and Tanzania and Nepal and Romania every day, all the time, all around the world. And it's fascinating because you use Facebook chat or you use Skype and you use different mediums for us to communicate, and it literally eliminates the borders of each other, whereas before we didn't have that tool.
So leverage social media in your models.
Correct.
What do you think, I mean, the conversation of sustainability is so big, but there's so much misinformation.
Yeah.
if there were three things you could clear up by things that people are still arguing about, are they facts or not, what would those be?
Sustainability has this connotation that it's very much a hippie environmental movement. And I think when we look at what this term sustainability is about, it's really threefolds. It's one, figuring out ways in which we can enhance quality of life for our people. It's the social aspect, it's social inclusion. Figuring out ways we can drive economic development and job creation. And finally, incorporating environmental sustainability in that model.
See, when you say it that way, like, I don't know if I've heard someone define the first two. I think it always gets morphed as just the last thing.
Yeah.
But the social inclusion and job creation or economic opportunities, let's say,
Yeah.
attached to
Environmental sustainability.
like done in a way that will be environmentally sustainable.
Correct. Because we're in a day and age where we need economic development,
Yeah.
right? It's how the world runs, unfortunately or fortunately, good, bad, or indifferent, right?
Yep.
But the point is that we can't go back to the nomads, right? We can't go back to this society that doesn't incorporate that, unfortunately.
Right.
And so sustainable development, Jeffrey Sachs, a university professor from Columbia University, says that sustainable development is growing the world's economy while taking into account social inclusion and environmental sustainability. If we take those factors into the overall equation of what we're doing, into the overall equation of economic growth, we'll soon see what is sustainable and what is not sustainable, right? If we're just trying to reap the resources that are under our feet, in the boreal forest, as an example, we have the Canadian tar sands that everybody's eyes are on, and the whole Keystone Pipeline, because they think this is an energy source that's under us, but they don't realize the amount of how biologically diverse that area is, how important the boreal forest is as the respiratory lungs of this earth, and they don't realize the impacts it's going to have on public health as we continue to excavate and extract these resources that are just perpetuating our problem, right? And so if we're just looking at economic growth, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, it sounds to me like the definition of addiction, because we say an addiction is something that any time that the short-term gain has a long-term net negative. And so we're addicted anytime we're
Yes.
doing things in the short run that long term will hurt us.
That makes sense.
And that's how some of our economic growth has been.
Sure.
That's how some of our lives are.
Of course.
And that's the opposite of having a sustainable mind frame.
Very true. And we're getting to a point where people are waking up to this fact.
Right.
They're starting to understand that our current trajectory and way of growth, as we have done in the last 200 years, is not sustainable. It doesn't, if we look another 200 or 1,000 years out, if we continue at our current rate, we'll get to a tipping point and a carrying capacity of this earth that will not sustain our lives. And it comes back to people, right? The earth will survive far beyond
Will
us,
humanity?
right? Will humanity is the question. And so sustainability is very much a humanity topic. It's about ensuring that we're still around because we are an incredible species. We're probably the most incredible species that's ever walked and lived on this earth. But at the same time, we're perpetually degrading it at a rapid pace and needing to take a step back and pivot, right? How we've developed this world today is where we're at in the 21st century.
When people feel like you're the expert, Chris, you get sustainability, I do my other thing, and that it's too big and they don't feel like they can make a difference, what do you say to?
Well, I think everybody from your own lifestyle to how you make your money to your passion, I think can somehow contribute to a better way of life. And whether that's how you eat, whether that's being more conscious about the energy and water resources that you consume, figuring out ways in which you can reduce your impacts on your surrounding environments that we depend upon every single day. There are things that every single one of us can do in our daily lives in order to make a bigger difference. And when you compound that with 7 billion people around the world,
It's compounded interest.
Now you're talking about an incredible self-sustaining potential impact on this planet. And so that's what it's about, and that's what Ideas was all about, is bringing these people together of all walks, all disciplines. You don't have to be an environmental studies student. In fact, we want people of all perspectives, because these problems are not going to be solved by environmentalists.
No, no,
They're
no.
going to be solved by every person who is living and breathing and walking on this earth.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out a way for us to build capacity on a campus or in
Yeah.
a community, for us to share stories and perspective, and for us to develop new solutions that can change the paradigm in essentially how we operate, how we live, how we work, and how we play.
So tell us 2 things that you see out there that are happening in this area that are most exciting to you.
I think what they term the clean energy economy, right? This entire world that we think about, from how we heat and cool our homes, to driving industry and manufacturing, to moving to and from a place. It's all driven off of fossil fuels. And this resource, although has been such an incredible way for us to progress as a human society, is having a diminishing returns on us. It's having a negative impact on not only public health, but the environment. So I'd say one of the most exciting parts of sustainable development is the clean energy economy. The ability for us to transition from the energy that built our world to the energy that's going to shape our future. And being able to create jobs, drive economic growth, and at the same time solve a problem, I think is so incredibly inspiring, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Right now we have the solar industry in general
Right.
is producing jobs 20 times the national average in
That's
terms of census jobs. We're seeing that there are more jobs in the renewable energy industry now than coal, natural gas, and nuclear combined.
Yeah.
We're beginning to see that places like China are installing more solar
Yeah.
last year than the United States installed since 1970 in 1 year.
I saw something Ray Kurzweil said about the exponentiality of solar, and that it's gotten sold. Everyone's kind of misunderstanding it because it's such a small percentage, but that once it gets to 7 to 8 and it doubles, game is over.
Game is changed completely. And one thing to realize about the clean energy economy is solar is one of a diverse group of energy sources that we all need to tap into. If you're in Iceland, you're going to tap into geothermal, and they're producing now nearly 100% of all of their electricity demands off of geothermal power. If you're in the Midwest, where you have wind that's constant 24/7, you're going to use wind energy.
Right.
If you're here in Florida, and the Sunshine State, beautiful days out, right?
You're gonna
use solar.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there are so many technologies like that, and even ones that we have yet to find,
Yep.
that are going to allow us to meet our demand while creating jobs, including people, and
Whole new
helping to
industries.
sustain. Right.
So besides clean energy, what else excites you in this?
I'd also say the dismantling of the industrial agricultural complex. I think we're getting to a point where the way that we produce, distribute, process, transmit our food is completely unsustainable, and people are getting so excited about ways in which they can grow their own food in their backyard, and entrepreneurs are getting very creative and innovative about how they can utilize lawns and public spaces in order to meet the demand of our cities and communities. And that's something that I've been very passionate about in addition to energy. Fleet farming was that other venture.
You were just
that I
on
started.
NPR about this, right?
We were just on NPR,
So
all things considered.
what did you guys do in Orlando on fleet farming?
So the concept is quite simple, actually, and we're surprised that not a lot of people are doing this. But you know, right now we have this oasis of lawns, primarily St. Augustine grass, around our neighborhoods. It's kind of the utopian household of just having a beautifully manicured lawn that's nice and green, not being used, but using a lot of resources, using a lot of water. It's running off into our waterways. It's creating eutrophication. It's creating problems in our waters. And so it's this negative feedback loop. So Ideas for us came together and tried to brainstorm solutions to this local food system challenge.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges is that in cities, land is very expensive, and it's usually looked at for development. And so we were thinking, how can we meet this demand of local food production in a city, but and use underutilized land? And so we started to look around and we said, well, look at all these lawns in front of people's homes, or even in back of people's homes. Why don't we figure out a model where we can partner with the homeowner have them allow us to come in and turn their entire lawn into an organic farm. We maintain it, we grow, we do all the harvesting, the processing, the distribution, and then we can distribute that to local restaurants and farmers markets. And what's in it for the homeowner? Well, the homeowner actually gets a portion of what we grow free of charge, right? So they get 5 to 10% of what we're growing every single week, like clockwork.
Right.
And then we take 90+% and we process it in a commercial kitchen and we sell it to restaurants like the Sanctum and Choco's and Smiling Bison and many others in the Central Florida area. And so the idea started with 5 homes, and we started to, get more and more interest. We now have grown to 15 households that have urban farms, and so we maintain and manage 15 urban farms. And we saw that we're starting to actually create enough revenue to hire farmers.
Wow.
And so last year we hired 2 urban farmers who are working 25 hours a week, and they're literally hired to maintain urban farms on people's lawns, and we're now starting to really grow rapidly. And the concept, I think, was really picked up nationally because of the ability for this to scale across the country.
Well, and it takes me back to what you said earlier. Start small.
Start small.
Figure out how to scale it.
Yep.
But start.
Start small. We volunteered. We just basically said, let's just do this. Let's see how it works. All the volunteers who came out were able to take home produce. And I think one of the innovative aspects is it's zero emission agriculture. It's all done via bicycles. One of the biggest challenge with the industrial agricultural complex is it contributes to about 1/3 of global climate change, the entire food system. And that's because the tractors that are used to plow the land and to put in the plants are all fossil based, and then we harvest it with a fossil based tractor, and then we put it on a tractor trailer that basically is fossil based, and it gets shipped to a factory where we wrap it in fossil based plastic, and then it gets sent to the grocery store, and we drive over to pick it up and take it back. When you look at the entire equation, there's a 10-to-1 fossil fuel calorie to food calorie ratio.
Wow.
So every calorie that you eat from food, 10 calories in energy, fossil fuels, went into producing that. And so it's mind-boggling when we were like, this is completely mind-boggling.
So this is like transformational, especially for food deserts, right?
Of course.
Like, because there's lawns there.
There are lawns
there.
there.
And this could be actually economic development and jobs.
You got it. And we're starting to now
And
go
good
into
food.
areas of the food deserts. Now that we've piloted it, we figured it out, we're now trying to get some support from some of our partners to get into Paramore, as an example, in West Orlando, where we Pine Hills. We have a lot of support from Commissioner Hill, District 5 Commissioner of the City of Orlando, who sees the potential for this to really transform their community, create jobs locally there, keep the economies there in that community, and start to scale it to other neighborhoods in need.
So I have a question. You're fairly young when you started making big national and international change. How? What's been the key?
3 things: passion, patience, and persistence. I call it the 3 Ps. So when I look back at how I've engaged in all of these different realms, from government to chambers to private sector to nonprofits to civil society, which I've tried to engage in every single one of those to drive forward sustainability, it's been because I'm passionate about the topic that I'm spending my time in. This is who I am, not what I do. There are people who have jobs, and they go to work all day and they come home and they live a different life, and that's totally fine. I happen to be so fortunate to found something that is who I am internally. I cannot change that. Secondly, it's patience. It's being able to be patient about your idea and the fostering of that and not rushing it. It's difficult because we want something to be successful. We want something to be successful tomorrow or even next year or the year after that. And it's important for us to really be patient in order to move this thing forward. And finally, it's persistence. Persistence has been the key.
Give me an example of persistence.
Yeah, when we started Ideas for Us at UCF, we applied to be a registered student organization. And the student government actually denied us the first semester. And we said, why? Well, there's different organizations. They're similar to what you're doing, even though they weren't. And so unfortunately, sorry, you're not going to be an RSO. Well, the next semester we came around, we applied, they denied us again. 2 semesters in a row. to the point to where we said, well, we don't need to be an RSO registered for us to do action. We started doing lake cleanups. We started to get students involved in recycling projects. We just did it. We just started our own group on campus. And by the summer of that next year, student government came to us and said, we're going to allow you to be an RSO without even applying.
It's a great
example. They
example.
immediately wanted us in because they saw that we were engaging students. We had been printed in the paper 5 or 6 times in that year without even being an RSO. And they said, these kids have something that they're moving on. And that type of persistence, usually somebody would have got the first time around and got hit down and said, well, maybe not. Or even the second time, maybe not.
It's even bigger than that for the starter that's out there thinking, that's gotten turned down once or twice. Ideas is now how many places?
24 countries.
There's how many people involved in it?
Thousands.
And people actually were working to keep it from coming to the world.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember that. Sometimes we think everybody has an easy journey, right? It doesn't. If you have been turned down or denied or betrayed, rejected, whatever it is, that doesn't mean that isn't supposed to be birthed.
100%. And I have a full-time job. I work 50 hours a week, and when I come home, I have another full-time job, and I continue to foster this organization as the president of the board in order to help it continue to grow. And that persistence, that ability for you to take the passion that you have about something that you're doing at work, luckily for me, and outside of the work, is something that continues to drive us forward and why we're at where we're at in an 8-year period.
So how do you have spiritual practices? I mean, how do you keep it all together?
Well, I try my absolute best to get out and reconnect with the natural world. That's my spirituality. It's going out and surfing, which I get to do as soon as I'm done here, and being able to work with the force of nature, whether it's walking through a wonderful trail or it's being able to ride a wave. That type of connection with where we came from is exactly why it grounds me, and it's exactly why I'm able to continue doing what I do every single day. And I think it's important for everybody to find what that is. It's not always going to be nature.
It's something different.
It's something different for everyone. But it's important to find what does ground you and what allows you to clear your mind and allows you to remember why you're doing what you do. I think that's critically important. Every time I'm out there surfing, I remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, preserving this incredible body of water through the work that we're doing, whether it's directly or indirectly.
How do you define success for your life?
How do I define success? I think I define success by achieving happiness in what I'm doing. For me, it's certainly not monetary. I've turned down jobs where I could get twice as much money that I'm getting currently in the city of Orlando. And I don't need that. That's not what drives me. What drives me is being able to wake up every single day and know that what I'm doing is making a difference in people's lives or throughout our environment, and being able to be happy about the work that I'm doing, being fulfilled about the work that I'm doing, and knowing that every single day I'm doing something to progress that forward. That's success for me. It's not some type of monetary gain by any means.
What books have had the biggest impact on you?
There is this one book by Amory Lovins. It's a book called Reinventing Fire. And it essentially explains a lot of this transition towards a clean energy economy and what they call the third industrial revolution. And for me, it really reinforced a lot of what I thought I knew, but really brought the science and brought a lot of the expertise from so many people in history to explain why we're at where we're at in 2016 and where we're headed in the 21st century. And so that book has been incredible. There's a book also by Joel Kostka, and it's called You Are Here. And it's all about
You Are Here.
You Are Here. And it, the cover is completely blue with this earth on it, and it just says You Are Here. And it's just an amazing story of different ways that we've interacted and challenged our environment, but also ways that we're really starting to revitalize through various means of sustainability. And that really very much has stuck with me, and it was one of the first books that I read when I got into the environmental studies program. It's one of the first books they made you read, and it's since then has been transformative. In terms of people, I really look back to my mother, who's incredibly strong. As I mentioned, she was a single mother growing up and had 2 kids, got her double master's while doing everything. I mean, this lady is incredible. I always look back to that. Also, some of my professors, Dr. Penelope Canan is somebody who, when I took her class, I was so inspired that I started ideas.
Wow.
Literally.
A person, and we have to be reminded that one person can change the world, can change our world, and then light something happen,
effect.
Right?
Yes. A cascading effect
Look at
to
the
change
impact.
others.
Like you started ideas because of that person, and now look at how many people have been impacted by ideas.
And she's on the board of directors, and she engages with us every single week, and an amazing lady who I'm fortunate to not only call a friend, but a colleague and somebody who is certainly an incredible mentor in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So as we get ready to wrap up, something you would want to say to starters or makers or change makers?
Follow your instinct, and again, find that passion that you feel you can work day and night on moving forward. It's a mission of ours to find that and hold true to it. When I was getting this environmental studies degree and got into it, people were questioning what I was going to do in my career. What job are you going to get by getting an environmental studies degree at UCF? Why don't you get a business degree or something like that? And there are people who do that, and that's completely fine. And somehow I knew that that's what I needed to pursue, and I knew that it would work out. And I volunteered my time. I engaged in experiential learning. I tried to apply what I learned in the classroom through ideas. I got internships, paid and unpaid, and eventually got to a point where there was a snowball that was building to the point where I became a subject matter expert in this field just through my experiences, not just what I was learning in the class, but more through the experience. This position that I just got, there were some heavy hitters who I was up against, people who had PhDs in sustainability, people who had experience for 20 plus years in it. When they looked back at what I had done in the last 10 years, they felt that I was the candidate of choice because of where my passion was and what I was able to bring to the table in terms of innovation and creativity to get our mayor and our city to the next level. And I think that if we find that in us, there's nothing stopping you at all. And I encourage all of the starters to do that.
To find that fuel. So your new title soon when we come to your office will be what?
And Director of Sustainability for the City of Orlando. It
sounds very official. And that world change, right? Orlando, then the world. Thank you. You are a rock star.
Thank you.
And we find you on social where?
Yeah, you can look me up on Facebook, Chris Castro, my Twitter, @CastroIdeas. Definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'm on all of those channels.
Okay, and definitely hit him up, especially if you're interested in changing the world.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it.